Hello, everybody. David Markarian here, inventor of the MyoVision, with one of my favorite people in the world, Dr. Josh Wagner. And this is big, Josh.
It is, yeah. I'm here with you.
Welcome, Josh.
Yeah.
This is big.
No, no, thank you for having me. I'm excited to share what I'm about to share. Usually, I only put this inside a program for doctors, but it's just every day, every week, I hear from more chiropractors the craziness that's going on in the profession. We were just talking about this beforehand, whether it's uh, I don't even want to mention it, what you said, unless you want to, but the
Yeah.
Joe Rogan stuff, like it's not getting any easier for chiropractors based
Oh,
on
yeah.
outside forces trying to mess with the profession. So, what I'm going to share with you is a remarkably simple, outside of the box way to get patients to really understand why you're recommending the care you're recommending, decide to pay, especially in an environment where insurance is shrinking rapidly. It's 100% congruent for you, the doctor, and it just makes practice easier and more profitable without having to go out and see boatloads of more volume or new patients. So that's what's really beautiful about it.
That's cool, Josh. Okay. So you're going to let me know when to move on in this, and we're working together on this one.
Yeah, you
And
have
again,
my slide. You
yeah.
can, yeah,
So,
you can flip to the first one.
okay, cool.
And I guess before we get into it, obviously I have to establish why this is going on. It's because I've been besides from a practicing chiropractor, years and years before I ever started in practice, I just studied the field. I studied the practice management strategies, and my only goal was building the biggest practice possible and helping as many people and wanting to be recognized for it. And I realized a lot of the strategies taught to chiropractors, especially over the last 30 years when practice management just kind of exploded and you can find 300 different people preaching stuff, is that a lot of the strategies weren't based on painting the profession in the best light as much as they were trying to get the payment as quick as possible from a patient or getting patients to understand or try to educate them on lifetime care from day one, which isn't very realistic. A lifetime chiropractic paradigm is something that develops over time through care, oftentimes through lapses in care and reactivations, just like how you came to understand it. It probably didn't click from your first visit to a chiropractor, from your first day in grad school, or even from your first DE seminar. It evolved through time, through conversations in your own head, through talking with colleagues, through your own experience. And it's no different for patients. So oftentimes when we start off the patient on a relationship that combines what they're looking for, which is to get better, to get fixed, to get out of pain, to get their life back, and combines that into a whole new paradigm of what care can be, we often sabotage the visit or the relationship from the very beginning, even though we have the very best intentions at heart. David, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's and we we do need to try to apply critical thinking. How is the world going to see what we're doing and stop following, nonsense stuff from the 80s and actually think about the fact that our population has gotten significantly more sophisticated and we need to also, you know. It's really that
And,
simple.
yeah, and you're exactly right. Like what was preached and worked really, really well in the 80s and 90s worked back then. So you didn't really need as much critical thinking. And when I say it worked, it means when insurance was pretty much paying 90% plus of all patient bills, uh, you kind of didn't have to be as strategic. You didn't have to be as certain or confident or relationship driven with your patients because it was easy to just say, keep coming in. And for the most part, chiropractic care works amazingly. People feel great receiving it, and immediately after, they get the results they're looking for. And if you're a nice doctor, which most chiropractors are, because most chiropractors get in the profession from a healing and humanistic standpoint, it's not hard to just tell people, keep coming back, or this is what's good for you. And if they really don't have to reach far into their pockets, that was a very, very easy practice building model and strategy, which worked up until, depending on what state you're in, either 5 years ago or last month when insurance went from 80 to 90% reimbursement to maybe 20% reimbursement. And I see and speak to chiropractors all day or all week that uh, are seeing the difference between their revenue and their income being 80% insurance based to 20%, and that makes a big difference with,
Huge.
yeah, not just practice getting quieter, but think of everything else that their practice provides us, whether it's children's tuition, whether it's our vacations, whether it's the car we drive, just even from a self-esteem and ego standpoint of seeing like, hey, this is what my practice is bringing in, this is what my bank account looks like, this is my income, all of that, it all makes a difference. And there's no reason beating around the bush. That makes a difference. And it also makes a difference in how inspired you are showing up in practice every day, continuing to practice when you see that you're getting compensated fairly for a beautiful service that you deliver to your community and that your community dearly needs. So what I'm going to share is how the traditional age-old visit number care plan in many, many ways sabotages the initial relationship with the patient, the continuation with the patient, the potential referrals from the patient, and how to make really, really simple changes to your care recommendations to see easier care acceptance, payment, referrals, retention, congruence. I mean, everything. Hands across the board. It's a win-win for you and your patients and your practice. And that excites me to give this to chiropractors. And I think the reason it's so simple yet out of the box is because chiropractors are addicted to numbers, whether it's, and numbers being practice stats, whether it's your volume, whether it's your number of new patients, whether it's your PVA, and your number of visits in a care plan falls right into that. So the second patients get recommended a care plan that's, I would say, anywhere from over 6 to 8, maybe 10 visits, they like little red flags go up in their back of their head and they're starting to think, wait, when I bring my kid into the pediatrician for an issue, they don't need 6 or 8 visits. When I go to the dentist, I don't need 6 or 8 visits to get my crown done. Or when I go to the orthopedist from a broken arm, like even with the casting and the follow-ups, I don't need 8 visits for that. So how come with the chiropractor, I don't need to be seen 10 times, but some chiropractors are taught to recommend, 115 visit care plans or 85 visit care plans. And if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, Josh, I recommend 36 visits. That's so much less. I'm telling you, if it's over 8 visits, your patient is getting skeptical. They're not going to be able to explain it to their husband or spouse that night. And no matter how long or in-depth your lay lecture, your doctor's report, your report of findings, whatever it may be is, it's not going to convince. And if anything, it's going to come off more like a sale and more like you're trying to convince them, even though your goal is to educate them. So I'm not saying don't see the person X amount of times, but it's how you present it that's going to make all the difference for them understanding it making sense, and them wanting to move forward. So David, I don't see on my
Yeah.
end, do you? Go to the next slide.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to just add to that. I just had this personally happen the other day. A good friend had a problem with their back, and I suggested they go to a chiropractor. He said, absolutely not. The last time I went, he tried to talk me into like a year care plan up front, and there's no way I'm seeing a chiropractor again. And I said, go to this guy. You won't hear a single thing like that from him. But that's the kind of thing that happens. And we have to take seriously the impact it has on the entire profession when that word gets spread that way. It's just absolutely, it horrifies me to see how many people he's saying that to, and how the chiropractor that tried to get him into the year care plan this way without even considering the impact, had no clue or believed that what he was doing was because his coach told him to do it was the appropriate thing to do. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And adapt, migrate, or die is what this is all about. And again, like just to reinforce what you're saying, Josh, I'm watching so many chiropractors in denial right now that are literally watching things drop like crazy. And they're like, well, they're not going to change anything. They're going to keep doing this. And what does that lead to? We all know what the definition of insanity is. So let's move on to the next slide. Is that right, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. Should be.
Great.
Uh, Wait, I'm not seeing the slides on my end, actually. I still
Huh?
see the white screen with our faces, like the intro slide.
Um, that's weird. The lecture's going. Hold on. Oops, let's go. You didn't see it before?
No, no, that's why I asked you to go to. Oh, now I see it.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
the first one, oh, I guess you didn't. Oh, I wish we, yeah. There's
go
your
back to number.
first slide, right?
Okay. Yeah, so keep it there. Keep it there for now. So
Okay.
based on what I've seen, David, I've seen with a lot of the practice management out there just over the last couple of years, them catching on to how it doesn't work anymore. Everyone gets a year-long care plan or go to the person down the street, that stupid line like, oh, if you're not going to, follow these recommendations, I'm not going to sacrifice my care. You can go down to the street to another chiropractor who doesn't care as much. The ridiculousness of what they're taught to say to patients. But
Yeah.
a lot of them are switching to like 3-month initial care plans plus a certain number of visits, but it still isn't having the same impact because they're saying 3 months, 36 visits, or 25 visits. So they've gotten a little better of realizing the Mercedes 80s is over. You can't just do whatever you want and expect people to blindly follow. Now that people have to pay, there has to be congruency, understanding. You have to get on their level. And I relate that to years ago, I went and did Invisalign, which is those clear braces for the teeth. And a cosmetic dentist in Manhattan, who's probably one of the best in the field, and I'm good friends with. And he told me, Josh, it's going to be in a year and a half process. And I get it, shifting the teeth, just like chiropractors are taught to tell patients, if it takes that long for the teeth, it's going to take this long for the spine. But he told me it's going to be a year and a half. And I said, okay, let's go. And he conveniently and very smartly, I don't even think he knew what he was doing, never mentioned how many times I would have to go back in for like bi-weekly appointments to get them adjusted and get a new set and to just monitor it. And what happened quickly within those first few months, I realized how often I had to keep going back for these visits. And if I knew how often I had to go and wait in the waiting room, wait in the dental chair, get the adjustment, get the new pack, I probably never ever would have done it. But since he just said, listen, this is what the end result's going to look like a year and a half from now, we're going to get you there, and he was super confident, I said, game on, let's go. But he didn't detail I'd have to be in there 45 times over the year and a half and like destroy, an hour out of each day of a practice day and a work day to do it. And if I had known that, I would have been extremely more hesitant to get started and to pay him. And now this completely relates to you going over your care plans with patients, because as soon as you mention the total visit number, they start getting nervous and scared. Just like I said, they start thinking, do I really need that? Would another chiropractor recommend less care? And now more than ever, your new patients have probably been to another chiropractor before you because it's not the 80s or 90s where you're their first experience. And I don't know any 2, 3, or 4 chiropractors that recommend the same exact care with the same exam, with the same technique and the same approach. Uh, our profession is completely separate in how people choose to practice. And that's a beautiful thing, but it also hurts us. So when someone comes in and they don't like what they hear, they're immediately going to think, maybe I can get it done better, easier, quicker somewhere else. So I'm going to share with you, again, how to present a care plan that makes it so that's not going to be running through the patient's mind. And there's more congruency. So when you recommend a visit-based care plan with total number of visits, and in week 6 or 8 or 9 what the frequency is already going to be, there's something inherently incongruent with that when it comes to what chiropractic truly is in a vitalistic model. Meaning, we are not just putting input into a static system and we know exactly what it's going to look like on week 8 or 11. That's a constantly changing system, regardless of if you x-ray it on the first visit, or here's something, I'll throw in a pitch for the myovision. A myovision isn't going to look the same on visit 1 as 5 or 10 or 15, because if what you're doing works to a vitalistic adapting human being, which we are, there's going to be change, and you don't know how that's going to unfold. So telling the patient your frequency is going to be 3 times a week at week 7, when you have no idea how they're going to progress, is extremely incongruent and not true chiropractic. So I'll say that straight up, without a doubt. David, you want to fill in on anything like that?
Yeah, no, it's everything you're saying is so true, and focus on what you're doing. doing a good job is really more important than anything. And also, you look back at you're talking about the myovision side of it. B.J. Palmer, chiropractic was at its peak from 1926. I just got off the phone with the former ICA president last night, and we were discussing this. He said, that B.J. Palmer in 1926, chiropractic was unknown, and he used the NCM, and he literally measured everything. B.J. Palmer he measured everything under the sun from blood pressure to X-ray. He was doing all this stuff, but he knew then, inherently, he knew the impact that objective data had on patients, and to prove to them using objective data the value of what he's offering. And if you look back into the actual history of chiropractic, that's really what happened. Now, if you look, he mentioned this 1926, chiropractic non-existent. B.J. Palmer implemented the NCM in 1926. 1932, what happened? Literally, in that short period of time, chiropractic was #1 as the alternative to traditional healthcare, to the traditional model. And then that's exactly what happened because he knew that. Now, we've never reached that level of acceptance since then. Why? Because there's something we're doing wrong. And Josh, you're helping dramatically by pointing this out. And it's so logical and rational, but combining the myovision data to track progress and to use it as a pivot point to help the patient understand what they're doing and why they're there, because you're selling the invisible, you're showing the invisible, but you're tracking their progress with something that's objective, puts them also in control of their healthcare. And that's another big reason why it's helpful to do. So, and I know, Josh, you've probably seen this yourself in your practice. The patients love it. It helps them to see why they're there. They get to show their family and friends why they're there. But it's not about tricks. It's about doing a good job. And so
the ability to send it through a text to friends and family is a huge referral bonus. And
right.
I'll talk about that later. But I'm just looking at the slide because I want to get into the third point, especially during an exacerbation. I also just looked at the second. That's probably a typo. When I wrote visit number isn't a red flag for patients starting care, visit number absolutely is a flag. So that's a mistake. But what isn't,
I'm going to cross this out right here. There.
Let them know what your initial frequency is, and you absolutely should, because you are in charge of care. I'm not going to start telling you about a membership practice or a come as you want, unlimited care type of practice. Absolutely not. You are in charge as the doctor of what's in the patient's best interest in their protocol, and you most likely, through your experience, know what initial frequency you want to start at. So you may say, I'm absolutely going to start seeing you 2 times a week or 3 times a week for the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4, whatever is clinically congruent for you. And then we're going to adapt as you progress. So right there, you're foreshadowing that they're going to be better. They're not going to stay at that frequency the whole time, which obviously would scare people. And you're going to adapt, which is congruent. Now, why does this work so well during an exacerbation? Because if you set someone up on a fixed visit number care plan that has a fixed frequency at every stage of the way, what happens when they have an inevitable exacerbation? Your whole plan goes awry, meaning you then have to take visits from somewhere else if you need to see them more often. So let's say they're at their maintenance phase of the plan and they're coming once a week, but then they get in, something happens, and you want to start seeing them 2 or 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks to help get them over that. Where do you take those visits from? You can't. You either already use them or you've got to rob them from the end of the plan. Or if you add on more, that patient is thinking, do I have to come in this many more times because that's truly what's in my best interest? Or is it because the doctor's getting paid more, whether it's out of my pocket or the insurance? And that's a conversation I know every doctor has in their head that's happening, because the patient's not going to say that, but they're thinking it. And whatever you're thinking, the patient's thinking, and that's where a lot of patient disappearance, lack of referrals, lack of retention happens. So in this model, if someone has an exacerbation, you can increase their frequency. They don't have to pay anymore. It doesn't change the plan, and they know it's 100% because it's in their true healing best interest, and that's a beautiful, beautiful fact too. So right. Dave, go to the next slide with that. Okay, so here it is, and it's going to sound so simple, and because chiropractors have been trained to be addicted to numbers, it throws most chiropractors for a loop. So you have your current care recommendations, whether you recommend 6 visits, 60, 120, and it's most likely over a period of time. 6 visits over 2 weeks, 60 visits over a year, 120 visits over a year, whatever you do. What you can do is purely drop the total number of visits from the recommendations. You don't say it, you don't write it down, there is no reference to it because it doesn't exist. Now really catch on. You are not guaranteeing, they are not paying for a fixed number of visits because, like we presented, or like we showed with the myovision or an exacerbation, it may change throughout time what they need. Someone may progress extremely quickly, and then you can put them on a reduced frequency rather than the old model of they progressed really well. And I don't mean just symptoms, I mean in all of the objective analysis you're doing, but then you're still seeing them for 3 times a week for another 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and both you and the patient know this is overkill, this is unnecessary. Like, that's what happens in a lot of practices with fixed, cemented care plan visit numbers when the patient does really well. And that sucks because right then you know you're losing that person after their care plan is done. They're never going to refer. And think about the passive practice growth of referrals over a patient's life, of reactivations over a patient's life, and retention, which most practices don't get because of how great chiropractors are taught to recommend care. So when you purely recommend to a patient, we're going to start working together for 6 weeks, or we're going to start working together for 3 months, you're not telling them anything differently. You're not telling them that you're never going to see them again after that initial phase. You're not telling them that's all that chiropractic is for. You're not telling them they're getting a guaranteed 18 visits. You're just letting them know to get them the results they're looking for through the best process. And we're not going to go through the communication that you can find on my website, but purely the plan you're recommending, you don't have to attach a visit number. And in fact, it helps you a lot more when you don't. You just let them know the initial frequency, because a person can digest, like, listen to me say 2 different things. Mary, I'm going to see you 36 visits over the next 3 months to get your spine, back in place or back in shape. Or, Mary, we're going to work together for the next 3 months to get you, back on that tennis court, out of pain, not having any compromise when you do your weekly Sunday run, and it's not going to come back. The goal is for it not to come back after that at the end of 3 months. I didn't mention anything about number of visits. It is far, far easier to understand, agree with, and want to move forward with that second recommendations. And really all I did is drop the 36 visits.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can hear that from a patient standpoint, how much different it sounds.
And it's so simple, Josh. And the thing to remember, 2 things to remember, I'm just going to summarize these 2 from what you just said. A, it's a fluid process, and it always is a fluid process, and don't forget that. And B, drop the rule-based thinking because it doesn't work. So it really has to be a fluid process, and you do have to adapt to changes. How do you deal with it? It's like having a car. So you're going to say, "Oh, your engine blew up," but nope, we're only seeing you once this week, so we won't be able to deal with your engine blown up for another week. That's just dumb. You have to deal with things as they happen, and it's fluid. And if you think in a fluid process, you're going to be doing it together too. That's what's different. The patient's engaged.
Yeah, and so it gives you that congruency and fluidity of, let's say if you take care of someone visit to visit, but from a business model, unless you truly believe that patient only needs a handful of visits, from a business and a practice financial model, visit to visit care usually sabotages the practice because the patient always knows any visit might be their last. So whether it's you weren't as friendly that day, they gave you a weird look, they didn't like your CA that morning, she didn't have her caffeine, whatever it may be, in a visit for visit model, the patient is easier to be gone at any moment, but your congruency in your care as you progress is the most congruent. Now you can meld those because with the time-based model, you can adapt their frequency no matter what's going on. And it also doesn't mean you can't offer visit-to-visit care in your office, whether it's for a patient who doesn't want to accept the time-based model, or you feel they don't need as many to get the results you want for them. So, David, go to the next slide.
Sure.
Here's what starts to get really beautiful about this, because one of the issues for chiropractors is that people don't fully respect or retain all the education we provide them. Think about the lay lectures you do, the emails you send, the videos you may do, the table talk, the in-house events, all of that. It's rare that unless it's a long period of care and multiple reactivations, that patients really finally get it, the value of the care you provide. Now, when you do time-based care, you can add into your care plan that all of these extra things you do outside of a CPT code, outside of an adjustment or a modality, is part of what they're paying for. Now, psychologically, when someone sees that your monthly lay lecture or the videos you send them, the at-home exercise instruction is all part of what they're paying for, immediately that increases the value of it and the perception and them wanting to take advantage of it. You know, when you hand people educational material and handouts, that ends up lost before they even get home, and they probably never look at it. When they see that they're paying for your education, you will see more attendees at your workshops, more people watching your videos, digesting your content, and then get this. When they're actually doing that, do you think there's more of a chance they're going to progress quicker? Because they're probably going to be taking more advantage of all of the lifestyle and health benefits you recommend to do outside of just showing up for their visits. So when someone is progressing, now here's where it's going to get really cool, because you can start increasing your profitability with less visits and your revenue with less visits. So if someone's getting better quickly and they were on a 3-month care plan where you said you're absolutely going to have to be seen 36 times, but they're getting better quickly than someone on a 3-month plan who didn't have a set number of visits, who's going to end up getting seen more times? Obviously the person with 36 visits, whereas the other person didn't need to keep that frequency as long. Yet, when your 3-month care plan was the same rate, so I'm talking, you don't even need to increase your fees or anything. If it's the same rate as the 3-month 36 visit care plan, you might have seen the person 27 times, but they paid the same amount as the 36 visit chiropractor. So you just profited 8 more visits without having to bend over 8 more patients, and the patient's happier because they were getting better quicker. Look at the revenue difference right there. Look at the profitability difference. So in that 8 visits, you can either decide, you know what, I realized I don't need to practice on Saturday mornings anymore. I don't need to practice on Fridays anymore, because I can have this many patients starting up in this volume and see more revenue. Or you can take the time that 8 visits would have happened and just see more patients, help more people, and have more patient investment. So when you're not locked into a set visit number as the patient to the practitioner, your profitability goes up, your time adjusting oftentimes goes down because patients are getting better quicker, and you can choose what you want to do with it. Either make the same amount in less hours, or practice the same amount of hours and make a lot more without necessarily having to adjust tons more volume. And that's where it really starts getting this model, not just where it's easier for a patient to understand and accept, but financially a lot more incentive for the practitioner. And just as a quick disclaimer, obviously this doesn't work for an in-network model where you can only get reimbursed by the insurance company for CPT codes per date. But for cash patients, this is absolutely beautiful. For out-of-network where there's a high deductible, absolutely beautiful, which is most patients now. And it's just, it makes so much sense. So Dave, you can go on to the next slide unless you have any questions or anything you want to chime in with.
Now, the only thing I wanted to add to this whole thing with this, I just got involved in, this is so terrible, but one of the chiropractors just lost his license over a care plan. And the crucial element in the case, as you know, I do tons of legal cases. I'm always involved on the legal end of things, and I was just interviewed on for the LA Times last week. Interesting. That was it's a whole other subject we can discuss in a different time. But this individual who lost his license because in doing a care plan, the element that led to his losing his license was one simple thing. I'm not sure if you know what it is, Josh, but they asked him to show objective proof monthly that there was progress. And he literally, we had this conversation 4 years prior. He said, he kind of laughed, and he's a great guy, and he said, David, you know, I love your machine, but the truth is I run a cash practice. I don't need a myovision. And I said, you know, the truth is you really do, but because it's, you know, it's something that's very important for patient care. And I didn't quite even see this benefit until this happened. And now this happened twice now, where he literally lost his license. Why a year later, patient filed a board complaint that she didn't get any better and paid for a year care up front. And the board, and I'm not going to say the state, the board in the state said, okay, this is gonna go to court, et cetera. They had a hearing. They said, could you please show us some objective? He didn't document anything. He literally just saw patients, and he had no subjective objective stuff. But they asked for objective proof, any objective proof that the patient was changing over time. There was any improvement, anything got worse. He had zero. He called me up afterwards, and he lost his license literally for 5 years. He called me up afterwards. I wish that I had listened to you, because that would have been the thing that would have saved me. And we have 6 now audits where the exact same thing happened, and the chiropractor walked away scot-free because he had that data, because he did a test every 4 to 6 weeks, and he had that data in their file. So I want to make sure how important you take this objective data. We're going to this evidence-based model in this world, whether you like it or not. It has a huge impact on not only impacting the patient the way BJ Palmer did, but protecting your right to practice and protecting your license. So I just want to make sure you understand that. So from another perspective.
I'm glad you said that, David, because on my Facebook Live, and I got a comment coming in from Clayton who says, I've been interested in the MyoVision. My concern is that MyoVision oftentimes is not reproducing identical objective information. I am open to input or correction. So I'll let you answer that right now.
Well, Palmer's publishing the study now. That is true of all other machines out there. Those words, you can actually go to the MyoVision site and yourself. There's a doctor who said the same thing in a seminar, and you can watch the test being done. You can watch the reproducibility. Now, Palmer's publishing the study that was just completed. I just spoke to them yesterday. They found test-retest reliability with the MyoVision. The issue's been that people have either been using the machines that were out there. There's 9 or 10 machines that were just terrible, and they didn't work very well. But the current design for the last 6-7 years, their test-retest reliability that Palmer found in this study was 0.96. That's equal to an MRI. So the concept that it's not reproducible is more just a bunch, truly, it's just has to do more with the fact that either the test is even done wrong or they've been using machines that are terrible, and it's more historically something people have said, and they've been spreading it around. But just watch the video if you want to, and the study you'll see published in the next 3 months. And so reproducibility, which does exist as a problem with every machine that I know of, does not exist as a problem with the MyoVision. So if you want to contact me, email david@myovision.com. I can send you a link directly to the video, and I can send you a summary of the paper if you'd like to. So those are
And
the old
David,
days.
MyoVision is being published in medical, in that examination texts, right?
Yeah, well, that's the other thing about it that's so funny, and that's what led to Palmer publishing this. Guess who's been using the MyoVision static EMG for years? The VA hospital. And they did their own retest reliability, and they just laugh when they hear this. But the truth is, what happens is, and I contacted the president of one of the chiropractic colleges, said, the students are saying it's not reproducible. It's turning into one of these things where it's like, not reproducible, not reproducible, but nobody's actually doing any tests. We pulled up all the tests the students had done without even attempting to do them properly, and the retest reliability on all the tests for his students at the school was in the 0.94, 93 range, and he just goes, David, what is this about? I said, it's a religious belief. Everyone just is promoting this religious belief that there's no reproducibility to it, when in fact there is, and just go ahead and watch it live on the website. You can see the test done one after the other, and the guy bought a machine. So it's just a fallacy. It's completely false, 100% false, and it's being published now. But again, the VA hospital medical world has established it. Dr. Oz's partner, he did retest reliability at Cleveland Clinic hospitals. Oz's partner, and said, why did the chiropractor, try to imagine this, we're in the Cleveland Clinic hospitals, the chiropractor working there said there's no reproducibility to it. I said, how do you know that? And he goes, well, I heard it. And I said, well, have you ever tested it? The director of which is Oz's partner, said, let's do tests on it. And guess what? The retest reliability they did was in the 0.98 range. So it's like, give me a break. I've kind of had it with this. The way people, unfortunately, in our profession, there's more rumor, false stuff. And I think it's because it's been such a dogma-based profession that critical thinking doesn't apply. Why not investigate instead of talking? That's one of the things, the problem. And look at the LA Times article, and you'll see, you get an idea of what's really going on. You can Google David Markarian LA Times, or email me, and I'll send you the truth about what that article's about too, if you want to see it.
Cool.
It's fascinating.
Cool. All right, so we only have a couple more slides, really. I'm going to get just reiterate how when you offer your care as a length of time relationship, you're becoming the expert, the doctor, the partner with that patient rather than a number of visits. Immediately puts the patient in the mind, where can I get this cheaper? Whether it's, I'm going to go down the street to the chiropractor who has, the $17 visits or the $49 a month, let's say, clinic, or where can I go where they're going to recommend less visits? So as chiropractors, again, we're addicted to numbers that we can tell our coach, that we can stay from a stage. With those same numbers that we're addicted to crush our credibility and hurt our relationship with the new patient, which hurts them saying yes, paying, and referring. So when you let go of all of that ego stuff and you make it what's in the best interest of the patient, with your experience, based on their objective findings, how long you want to take care of them for, or how long it needs to get them to a place where their goals are met, and you're not leaving them where 2 weeks later everything's going to resurface again. And that's what you should know with your technique and your experience as a doctor. And when you frame that as that's the time period you're going to work together, rather than I need to see you 36 times or 60 times or even 12 times, you will get far more compliance and referrals, because referrals don't happen because patients got good results. They expect good results. No one refers because they got their expectations met. Referrals happen because patients have a great experience. And when you try to overload them with education, mostly to get them to accept a plan that doesn't make sense up front, that's not a good experience, and patients don't want to refer to that. So having time-based will increase your referrals because it makes sense to people and it's a good experience. It'll increase your profitability because most likely they're going to take more advantage of everything else you offer, which used to be for free, which had no value. Now it's part of the plan, so they take advantage of it. They get better sooner. You don't have to give as many adjustments, which patients love, because as much as they like you, they don't like leaving at lunch from their office to get adjusted. They don't like racing home in rush hour to get adjusted. They'd rather get the results, pay you more, and not have to see you as many times. And great chiropractors, from a business perspective, understand that. That's a much better model. Get paid more, have happier patients, not need to see them as much. That's actually both a great business and paradigm for the profession to be painted in a much better light. So your profitability goes up. You decide what you want to do with more free time because you don't have to see people as many times. If there's ever the exacerbation, you can completely and congruently see them more times without any ambiguity of like, is the doctor just seeing me more because he's going to get paid more? None of that. And your recommendations are going to be more taken advantage of outside of just showing up for visits, whether it's your at-home exercises, whatever you recommend. It's a win-win-win in every form, and it's so simple. But because we're so trained for everything to be number-based in our practices, it throws most chiropractors for a loop. So literally, you can charge the same fee for your care plan, the same amount of time, do the same exact things. You don't have to change anything in how you take care of someone. All you do is drop the total number of visits that you're guaranteeing and you're writing down when you go over their best recommendations. So go to the next slide, David. That's funny.
Oh.
Yeah, this is reiterating what I just said. You can go to the next one. Okay, so going over some financial and benefits. Let me see. So, how to recommend it? Like I said, if 3 months is congruent for you for a specific patient presentation, and you should have different time-based models depending on what the person needs and what they're looking for. But you let them know this is what we're gonna start working together for this amount of time. You say start because it doesn't mean it's an end-all be-all. You're not guaranteeing that they're going to be completely fix. You don't know what they're going to be like, and you're not guaranteeing they're never going to need more care after that. No differently than a visit number plan. You absolutely are going to tell them the initial frequency and let them know as they progress it's going to change, which again, they're going to be happy for because you're foreshadowing that they're going to progress and foreshadowing that they're going to not have to come in as often as in the beginning. And again, completely congruent. You shouldn't know as a chiropractor the exact care they're going to need 8 weeks from now or 12 weeks from now. It's not congruent. So the more congruency you have on the inside, the more powerful you're going to come off, because when you're more congruent, it's things you can't control change, like your body language, your tone of voice, the words you choose. When you're 100% congruent, you're going to come off so much more leader-like, rather than when you're scripting a ROF that your coach from 1987 gave you that you don't 100% believe in. Patients can sense that. And that's another aspect that just crushes so many great chiropractors' practices that believe this is the only way to be successful. I have to do this exact script that this coach said because it worked in 1989, and everything is different, from the insurance to the public perception to people have heard, probably, most report of findings scripts, patients have heard their life insurance rep use it on them. They've heard savvy car mechanics use it on them. They've heard everyone use it. Don't be that person. Don't come off like a salesman to your patients. And this is an amazingly beautiful way to not only not come off as like a salesman, but to increase your profitability without even having to increase your volume. So have different care plans based on patient presentation, your experience, what you think is needed, no differently than you probably have different visit number based care plans. Dave, is there another slide? To take into consideration fees, because oftentimes chiropractors struggle with this, be really careful, because you should still have a per visit fee. This isn't a time-based care or nothing. Chiropractors get confused with fees by comparing themselves to the standard in the industry, whether that's like proverbial $40 to $45 has for some reason been a typical chiropractic per visit fee, comparing yourself to your neighbors, comparing yourself to the chiropractor you went to when you were young, comparing yourself to the amount of time it takes for you to deliver the adjustment, and then thinking, how much is that time worth, for me or the patient's perception? How hard was it or easy was it to learn what I'm doing, whether that's applying a modality or your adjustment? There's some chiropractors that it took them years and years to get to the level of their ability to deliver a certain adjustment. There's some chiropractors it took them a weekend course. And there's no good or bad there. I'm just saying, be careful of basing your fees and your value based on how hard it was for you to learn and apply what you're doing. What's a better way to value your care is to completely switch it around, have nothing to do with what you're doing, what you have, how long it takes, or chiropractic at all, and start thinking about what's the difference in your patients' lives when they get the results they're looking for. Whether that's 2 weeks, 6 months, a year, 3 months, you've been in practice or you've been in student clinic, you know the difference chiropractic makes. And you know not just the get out of pain, the better x-ray, the life difference it makes for them, their spouse, their family, their hobbies, like what they love doing, and now they can actually do that again. And when you start thinking about the value you're providing for your patients, and you start thinking about what's a reasonable or fair fee for that, it's usually more than you're charging and far, far, far less than what they would have paid to have it, to get those life benefits back. Whether it's getting back on the golf course, dancing with their daughter at their wedding, or just going through life without that pebble in their shoe, like the proverbial neck or back pain or spasm that's always there, that is extremely valuable to have gone forever. And when you really think about it in that context, you should have no issue with showing your care at a rate that reflects that and being confident and certain, and it has nothing to do with gaming the system or the insurance company or trying to swindle patients for more money or anything like that. It would be completely ethical. It's just how you look at your fees and your value. So that's extremely important. David, what's the next slide? I think is this the last one?
I believe so. You want me to go to the
Well,
next one?
no, this is good. Let's stay here because this is important because some people still get confused if they're not writing everything down. That time-based care plans are not unlimited visits. It's not the old, unlimited chiropractic care at a fixed fee. It's not the $79 a month or $10,000 a month. Come as often as you want. It's none of that. It's not a membership practice, not unlimited visits. You are the doctor and the leader in the relationship. And at every week and step, you are dictating what the frequency should be. Patients aren't getting less visits for you to be more profitable. They're only getting less visits if they clinically don't need as many visits because they're doing so well. And when you put this into play, you will see it makes more sense for your staff. It makes more sense for your patients. You will be more profitable. You will make more revenue because guaranteed more patients who would have said, I need to think about it and disappeared will now say, can we start today? And I'd like to do, plan B, plan C, whether that's prepay, whether that's you divide it into installments. It doesn't matter. You are going to get more patients happily paying you, talking about you, staying with the recommendations, getting better quicker, and being a chiropractic advocate. So I can't explain more enough how in pretty much every category of the business and the patient care, it's more beneficial for you. It's a win for you and the patients. And so logical and no-brainer as soon as you just get past the age-old paradigms of everything having to have a number in chiropractic attached to it. So that's my piece, ending
Yeah.
for the hour. Anything, David, you want to
Well, I just
ask?
wanted to summarize that, all you're doing really, you're defining in detail the whole concept of under promising and over delivering, right?
It, yeah, it's so to me it's just so obvious. I appreciate everyone on here for whether you're watching this live or in a recording. You're obviously here because this makes sense to you and this makes a difference for you, or this will make a difference for you. And you're most likely seeing that the age-old paradigm of large visit number care plans hurts your practice and it sabotages the reputation of the profession. So this is a very, very simple way to change that immediately without, you don't have to, buy anything. You don't have to change your technique. You don't have to change your services. You can literally, for the most part, just cross out 2 numbers on your care plan recommendations. That's all you have to do. Everything else is getting excited and inspired of how to share that with patients and for the communication of how to eloquently and professionally do a consult and a recommendation. Go to patientmastery.com. There's a 15-minute video on the homepage where you can get some great strategies for how to communicate this to patients. And then if you get on my email list, I send videos out all the time with updates. So that's my gift for all the attendees. And what are you showing now, David?
Now I want to show you this because this is really funny. Arlen 4 is having his 50th anniversary. I wanted you guys to know about this in chiropractic in 2 weeks, and they asked me to share a story about Arlen. And this is such a beautiful example of the reproducibility. We actually did a test on Arlen, who was one of my biggest critics years and years ago. Now, of course. He actually had a test done in 2006 at the top of the screen here. You can see this is 2006, this is 2014. Look at the retest reliability on Arlen looking over this is over what? This is over 6, 8 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And this is like one of those things where a test and a retest like this, we were just looking at it and he just was blown away by this. But just to give you an example of that, to answer that question about retest reliability, this is on Arlen's own test that I did on him in over an 8-year period. It tells you how we can get into, from a biomechanical standpoint, get into these muscle tension states. I'm just showing you an example of that. And then the only other thing I wanted to make sure that as a technical tip, the eScan feature is one of the most powerful features in the software, and all the new software automatically does upgrades. But what I'm talking about is when to eScan is where you send the test results to the patient right to their smartphone. You email it. It's not an app based. And all you have to do for in the eScan is you can actually change it to say whatever you want to, put whatever you want to in these. And as soon as you go to send the test, you take someone's test if it's open, or after you performed a test, you can actually go to send any static test on a patient or thermography, any of the tests actually. Range of motion is the latest one we're doing that's really cool. And you can just right click and send the test to the patient right away. And the results are the result of it is that they end up getting this immediately, and they end up sending it to their friends and family. And one of the coolest things about it, and by the way, this is the new way we're showing range of motion. We can do it this way. You can send this also. But when you send the test to the patient, you end up emailing it to them, and they get it in about 10 seconds, reinforcing every single thing you said to them while you were talking to them on when you were meeting with them, and they end up getting this really great message that shows up that looks super cool. And as an example here, um, you can actually bring this up on the screen, and this is just showing range of motion. You can do with anything, send via email, and it even stores all their email addresses. So you put their name and information, and it stores them in the software. But it's a really great way to get the message out because people are posting this on Facebook, and it's helping validate the need for care to their friends and family at home. And so something to remember, it's very easy, and you can change the message based on the time of year. If it's Christmas, you can say in the message, hey, bring a can of food by for a food drive and get a free scan. There's so many cool things you can do with it. So very cool technical tool. We live in a world of smartphones right now, and it's great to take advantage of them. Now, for your website address, where did you want them to go?
Patientmastery.com, easiest place to go to get more videos. And also next week, I'm probably giving the best opportunity ever to get more of this material in the history of or the years that the Perfect Patient Funnel System has been open. So, get on the email list. You'll be updated about that because inside the program you get direct connection with me. I give you templates of samples to use. Oh, that's funny. The
It's,
website needs a little updated. Another developer did something funky this morning, but yeah, just yeah, you go to the website and there's a video below this that shows some of the communication to
mhm.
use, and it's right there. You don't even need to enter an email, and just make sure you stay connected because I got a lot of cool stuff coming out that is makes a huge difference for chiropractors.
That, that's great. Josh, you're one of my favorite people. I love the way you adapt to the changes that are occurring, and I want everyone to like start looking forward and not backwards, and listen to a lot of the stuff that Dr. Wagner's talking about because it's extremely valuable. He's a thought leader, and he has put the 80s behind, and he's looking forward and really creating a pathway for us to really grow into the upcoming years because things are changing dramatically, and it's adapt, migrate, or die. And Josh is about adapt.
Cool. Thank you, David, and so are you. So thanks for everything you are doing to the profession.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, cool. I just finished my live.